Before that, before that, we had done a Zoom session specifically about how to book the Zoom rooms in our District 41 Zoom booking. Today is special. Today's session is being specially conducted by Toastmaster Anuj Shrestha, who is our District 41 Creative Excellence Manager, one of them. And you might have seen the design credit given to Toastmaster Anuj in many of the designs that have come out from District 41 in this term. He is also the designer of the winning design for the XCOM announcer for this year. I must say that because his submission was also there, we had to choose a panel of judges who are completely out of our PR team, and we are happy to see that his design was chosen as the best unanimously. And congratulations, Toastmaster Anuj, for having won that. Now, we see that you've made a lot of designs in my home club, that is Everest Toastmasters Club, which we have not been seeing previously in our club also. And that has pretty much impressed me and a lot of other people who've been in the PR sector for a long time. And it's a pleasure seeing you here. I hope the attendants today will get to learn a lot about designing. The basics, I believe it is today because it says 101, so that we can apply the skill whenever and wherever we need it as per the requirement. Now, I would like to hand over the floor to you, Toastmaster Anuj. Take it away so that we can all learn to design.
Thank you, distinguished Toastmaster Moon, and a very good morning to everyone present here today. Hopefully, we'll be learning a little bit about graphic design and the process we utilize before we actually get to Canva and before we actually get to any other tool that we utilize to make those actual posters. So today we'll be learning a little bit about what graphic design entails, what it includes, and how we can actually come up with designs that are simple to do, yet very effectively in terms of the design itself. So, and again, thank you so much for being here on a Saturday at this early morning. It's a pleasure to be here talking to all of you guys as well. So I would actually like to begin with a question for everybody. So if you guys want to raise your hand and we can have answers, or you guys can reply on the chat as well. So the question is, what is the difference between design and art? So again, what is the difference between design and art? This is an open-ended question that I am asking for your opinions as well. It does not necessarily need to be correct or incorrect. All right. So design is precise. Design has certain principles. Art has no restrictions. Expressing thoughts and ideas with something specific is designing. Letting our thoughts and emotions run free is art. So those are excellent answers. Do we have any more? Design is about communicating a message. Anything else? So in my opinion, and in an opinion of a lot of people as well, I've heard a lot of people talk about this. This is something I ask a lot of people as well. The one thing that sets design and art apart is objective. Any design always has a purpose to it. It is always trying to provoke some sort of action or some sort of objective out of whoever is using it. Design does not restrict itself to graphic design. We have design all around us. In industrial design, product design, even the chairs that we're sitting on right now is a design. And the purpose of that design of the chairs is to be a comfortable seat for us, right? But whereas art is open for interpretation. Art provokes thought. whereas design provokes action. So with that in mind, every design that we do definitely needs to have some sort of reaction to it. So let me share my screen here really quickly. All right. I hope my screen is visible to everyone. All right. So what is graphic design? Graphic design in the theoretical sense of the way is a process of visual communication and problem solving through the use of type, space, image, and color. Graphic design ultimately communicates and provokes some sort of action. So in today's session, we'll be learning about a few graphic design principles that might help you level up our designs. And of course, we'll get to the process of how we can actually follow these principles to come up with designs as well. If towards the end of the sessions, what I would like to do is I would like you guys to submit a few of your, if you have any designs in mind that we can openly discuss about. If you guys want to send it in, we can discuss those designs towards the end of the meeting as well. So keep that in mind. And if you guys want to go through your archives or anything like that and send a few designs in, I'd be open to that as well. I think you can attach a file to the chat here itself. Otherwise, we'll figure out something else we can do towards the end. So there are a lot of principles and a lot of steps that we can take towards establishing a good graphic design, right? A good graphic design uses the least amount of energy to process the message that you're trying to convey. When I was starting off in design, one of my mentors really told me something that was very influential for me. What he told me was graphic design is actually something that is very related to psychology, because it is dealing with consumer psychology. Every piece of design that we do, every flyer we make, every advertisement we make, anything that we create, we are guiding the audience through a certain process, and we tell them what they need to see and how they need to react. Everything from the colors that we use, from the fonts, they all have a certain meaning to them, right? So as we all know, the standard colors for Toastmasters International is maroon, blue, gray, and yellow, right? Does anybody know what those colors actually signify in terms of color psychology? If you guys can reply on the chat, that's fine as well. Leadership. So the color maroon, which is of the color family of purple, actually signifies class, so elegance. So the color of maroon signifies elegance that is supposed to be elite status. So again, that is a very relevant color to Toastmasters. Why? Because we are all trying to progress and we are all trying to achieve that elegance as well. Blue signifies a lot of professionalism, trust, dependability. If you think about it, a lot of banks and a lot of international banks and a lot of tech companies utilize the color blue as well. Everything from Samsung to Hewlett Packard, they all have the color blue in them because they are trying to signify that dependability and trust and professionalism to their brand image. The color gray, of course, signifies clarity, cleanliness, which is irrelevant from the product of Apple. Apple utilizes that color really well. And the color yellow signifies friendliness and cheerfulness. So all of these, again, go hand in hand with the core principles of Toastmasters. So if we ever have the question, if somebody ever asks us, why are these colors utilized in Toastmasters, why these specific colors, these probably are the reasons. Whoever designed it, I'm not really familiar with who came up with the colors as well, but these are the colors and these are the reasonings behind it, right? So in terms, coming back to the design part of it, the first aspect of design is balance. We are always trying to achieve balance in every design that we do. When we have a sense of balance, if it's symmetrical balance, or there are two types of balances, of course, symmetrical and asymmetrical. But if we think about it, everything that we see, even in nature, is balanced. Even the human body is symmetrical if we divide it through the middle. Our right half and left half are like topographically symmetrical. If the world itself is a circle, so the one half and the other half in terms of shapes is always going to be symmetrical. Again, there is that is symmetrical balance. So whenever we see something that is really balanced, it is very comforting to the eye. However, we can achieve balance without it being symmetrical with asymmetrical balance, right? So if you can see the images over here, the symmetrical balance, if you draw a line through the middle, both sides are going to be fairly similar. In an asymmetrical balance, despite individually being different from each other, these two still appear to be in balance. So for example, if we look at this design over here, which is an ad for the vehicle of Saab and a few other companies, would you consider this a balanced design? So if we look and draw a line through the design, we can see that each of the halves is balanced in terms of the text, in terms of the car itself, and in terms of the major elements. Even this logo is balanced by the website over here, which is not visible because this is a really low resolution image, but however, this is very balanced in that sense. Similarly, this is a design that I made for Everest Toastmasters. So would you consider this a balanced design or not? So if you see how I've balanced it is, if you draw a line through the middle, each of these sections are countered by something on the other side to make it seem balanced. So if you look at it, the shapes, it does not necessarily need to be that it is the exact thing on the other side. However, the size, the proportions, everything is balanced. So one of the key things that I try to achieve with all of my designs is I wanted to represent balance in a sense that everything is symmetrical to each other in some sort of way, whether it be like literally symmetrical or off symmetry. However, like if I can counter an image with some text, if I make the text bigger, it's going to counter it really well. If I can do it similar sizes, that is also going to work. Similarly, the next rule that we are going to talk about is proximity. So how our mind works is if objects are grouped together, it is considered that if objects are grouped together, our brain processes it together as one bigger object. So if you look at a lot of international like websites, any kind of design that you look at, key information that goes hand in hand together, relative information, always are placed together, right? Even if we go back to this design, if you see, relative information is always placed together in proximity so that our brain processes this all together as one big element. Similarly, the two cars, whether despite them being two different objects, are placed together in proximity so that they are processed together. In this design as well, in terms of proximity, I have all of the speakers closer to each other. I have all of the key information in terms of joining information closer to each other so that the proximity is maintained. If you look at international designs as well, if you see, the brain processes all of these together because of proximity. Similar sized objects with similar information is again placed together, whereas objects that need to be separate from everything else is placed at a distance. If you see, this thing needs the butterflies and the land need to be processed as a completely different object to the text. So that is why they are placed at a distant. Right? Similar information is grouped together, all of the menus. So if you guys can imagine, if the home buttons were placed in different places, if the home was placed here, the portfolio was placed here, the notebook was placed here, and the contact was placed here, it would be very tiring for our eyes to process, and our eyes would have to move around into different places to actually capture those. Pardon me. Similarly, this is a design that I found shared on one of our, I think it was in one of our WhatsApp channels. All of the information over here is placed together. The key information with the Toastmaster of the day, the theme, the timing is placed together so that our brain processes it at once. Then we have a key image over here that needs to stand out, so it is placed separately. And then we have the key information with everything from social media information placed together, as well as the club information placed together. So the next thing that we need to talk about, once we maintain balance, we talk about proximity. The other thing that we really need to establish is alignment. So every design element needs whenever we're designing, needs to be placed in a certain alignment so that it processes, again, it visually guides us through the design and communicates our message more effectively. Right? So as I mentioned over here, this is probably the #1 beginner mistake that we see on graphics, and possibly the easiest to fix. Right? So there are different types of alignments that we can actually focus on. The first one is the left align. We can have it centrally aligned. We can have it right aligned. We can have a design aligned from the top, from the center, and from the bottom again. Whenever we are dealing with text or any of that sort of design, we need to make sure how we are trying to align the design, how we want our audience to go through the design. Right? So objects that are better aligned along a grid obviously looks better. So if we look over here, this obviously looks better in a sense that everything is aligned, everything looks symmetrical, whereas if it is not aligned, it goes off balance. So when alignment is one of the key methods to achieving balance, right? So when I talked about balance and proximity, again, with proximity and alignment as well, we are assisting it to achieve the bigger picture, which is balance, which is achieved through, again, even in this, if you see, the proximity is close together, so everything is in harmony in a certain way. So this is another design that I've shared on one of our social platforms. If you look at this, would you consider this design well aligned?
No.
Right? Because if when we are following visual guidelines, it is not following any pattern whatsoever. So again, it does not need to be centrally aligned, it does not need to be right aligned, everything does not need to be on the right side of things. But I took this design and I edited it a little bit, right? So if you see over here, everything is aligned to this line over here now. So I established 3 guidelines, right? So the text and key information that was over here, I aligned it to the left so that it processes it. It gives you a certain direction for your eyes to flow to. Then in terms of proximity, I brought these 3 in together and on the same alignment so that this is processed as an object all together as well, right? Then we have the logos that were not particularly aligned as well, aligned with the design itself, right? So even even using the same elements that you're already creating and using these parameters or these principles, you can already create a big difference on how you're designing, right? Then we come to probably the most important thing that we can talk about after balance is hierarchy, right? So hierarchy, basically in a systematic way, it of course tells you like priority list kind of thing. So whenever we're designing as well, hierarchy is giving you a priority list of what you are supposed to be looking at, right? So whenever you're designing, whenever you are working on a design, when you are working with hierarchy, you want the people to know where to look, right? So there are different types of hierarchies that we can do. For example, in this design itself, right? What is the first thing that you guys notice?
The musician.
The musician, right? Then the second thing that we notice is probably the name. And then we come down to the information. This is because in terms of hierarchy, the biggest thing is, the most important thing is the first thing that you should see, followed by maintaining hierarchy depending on the importance of the information, right? So whenever we're designing our flyers for per se, let's come back to the Toastmasters terms as well. What is the most important thing that you guys think that people should see? Whenever you're designing, like what is the first thing that you want the people to see?
Club name, then theme.
Club name, then theme. Okay. Event title. So event title, theme, I believe everybody wants the theme to be highlighted the most, right? So of course, when we are designing, the most important thing that people need to see is the theme. The theme, and followed by probably the Toastmaster of the day, Toastmaster of the evening, Toastmaster of the morning, or whoever it is. This is again my perception and can change from club to club. It depends on what information you really want to highlight. In some designs, you want to highlight, if your club is safe, just starting out, you probably want to highlight the club name more than the theme and the members as well, because you want to highlight the club is actually starting out and the club is out there, right? And again, if you're just if your primary audience is our guests, you probably want them to make sure that they see that the club information and with the meeting joining information is portrayed really well, right? Then followed by whose event it is, Toastmasters, right? Then who the speakers are. Some again, for some clubs, the speakers might be the primary highlight. So maybe you want to make the speakers the biggest like part of your flyer. So similarly, we come down to how do we actually go about creating this hierarchy, right? There are different methods that we can actually take, right? And it all comes down to one word: contrast, right? So contrast can be achieved in many terms, many figurative ways. It can be achieved in terms of color. It can be achieved in terms of size. It can be achieved in terms of linear contrast as well. right? So the best and easiest way to achieve hierarchy is first is of course size. However, when we are designing size, creating hierarchy through size might not always be available. That is when we can utilize colors as well, right? So in terms of colors, if you see, if you have this maroon background, out of these three colors, which color do you notice the best? Which one stands out the most?
White.
Right? Because that is the color that contrasts best with the background. Since they are, the blue and the maroon are of the same tone, similar tones, they do not contrast really well. So if you have a blue background and if you're using a maroon text, people will not see that, right? People may not necessarily see that. So if you want some information that is tertiary, like it is not primary, but it is secondary information that people can get to if they find the design interesting, you can utilize those colors there. Whereas if you want something to really stand out in your design, you utilize really contrasting colors, right? So this is a good example that I always use to show how contrast really works, right? So if you look at this from the white background, the black text is the most contrasting, as well as this is the biggest object available. So our eyes will automatically be drawn here first, right? Regardless of the placement. Again, this is not well aligned or anything like that. However, and standard our eyes flow, like whenever we're reading books and everything, it is always left aligned, right? If you remember all of our textbooks, all of the books that we read, everything starts from the left. So our natural instinct always is to look at the left over here. However, it does not necessarily always work that way, right? Majority of the time it does. I'm not denying the fact that it is not. Majority of the time, ideally you want to place this towards the left. However, if you look over here, the object that is in major hierarchy, you look at that first, then you look at the smaller objects, right? And then finally, you look at the object that may not even be visible to a lot of people, because this is not contrasting well, and this is information that I don't want people to really notice, right? Similarly, when you guys are placing information, you can also achieve hierarchy in terms of weight. So this is a linear hierarchy, right? So if you have a text with everything on standard font size, and you have one line over there which is in bold, our eyes will automatically be drawn to the bold text. It'll be easier to spot because, again, in terms of proximity, everything is being processed together and something over here stands out, right? So our field of vision is automatically drawn to this. Again, you can also utilize that in terms of color as well. So whenever we're utilizing certain contrasting colors, it automatically draws our eyes over there as well. In terms of alignment as well, right? Whenever we align everything on one line and place something that is slightly away from it, our eyes are always drawn to the imperfections. Why is this drawn to the more towards the left? Because probably it's more important. That is our thought process. The other way we can establish hierarchy, of course, is spatial intervals. If we put space between the text, we'll automatically identify that this text here is more important than the rest of the text, right? And of course, the final way that we can utilize this is utilizing uppercases. So whenever we're typing a lot, this comes in handy when we are putting in our meeting joining information with all of our dates, with all of our links and everything like that. How we can utilize these are, we can focus on what information is more important and then highlight those. We can either boldface it, or we can utilize colors, or we can utilize space. Whatever is available in our design, we can utilize that, right? Then we come to another really important rule that I am pretty sure a lot of us are really familiar with, especially if you guys are already in photography and stuff like that, which is called the rule of thirds. So the rule of thirds states that our eyes are typically drawn in terms of composition. If you draw a grid through any design, our eyes focus longest and for first on objects that are placed on the top left intersection of a grid, followed by the second one, third, and fourth. Right? So if you look at some examples, for example, this is a generic template I found online that is utilizing the rule of thirds as well. How is this utilizing the rule of thirds? Because what needs to be highlighted, our eyes focuses on this person first, followed by this discussion and insights. However, this is countered by this through hierarchy. So to create balance, to create our virtual eye flow, we can utilize the rule of thirds, we can utilize hierarchy, and then change things around, right? So since this place and this place are 25% and 20%, we can play around with it to make sure that this object is also highlighted. Again, in terms of proximity as well, this text is placed closer to the person so that our eyes process it together as well, right? So even on the poster that we created today, you can pretty much utilize this to any design that you create, right? You can break it down into a grid and see what information needs to be highlighted the most. So in this design, what I did was I utilized the first and second points to highlight the major object that I needed to highlight. So it's not necessarily that you need to utilize only one point or only the other point and place separate objects in these points. You can often utilize the 2 points to highlight the same object to make a bigger emphasis on it. So in terms of hierarchy as well, this entire object is processed as one, and this is the first thing that I want people to notice in this design. And the second thing that I want people to notice is the key information. So if you see here, what I did over here was, if I had placed these informations separately, I would have to establish another hierarchy through it, right? But what I did was I placed all of these information together so that it processes it together. And then what I did was I added a yellow background to it so that it is, in terms of size, since it is closer to this as well, our brain processes the entire circle as a one true object with all this information inside. So all of this is processed together, right? So whenever we're designing, we have to keep in mind what information we need our brains to process together, what information needs to stand out and needs to be separate. And whenever we're planning design, before, I always recommend that, like when we'll discuss that, how to do that today as well. Before we actually start designing, I always recommend that you spend a good amount of maybe 5 minutes to actually plan what you want to do, because you need to, in terms of visualization as well, you can visualize what you want to do. And those 5 minutes will save you about 15 to 20 minutes of going back and forth of what you want to do as well. Yes, Toastmaster Bharat, in terms of text, we can. In terms of backgrounds, I don't think we're able to use black, but we'll get to those questions in the end as well. So the last principle that I'm going to talk about today is white space, right? So white space is the area between design elements, although also the space within individual design elements that in between and around the information that makes the text breathable. It adds space to it, right? And again, despite its name, it does not necessarily need to be white. It's the space between different elements inside the design. And if you can utilize this well, you can create really clear and beautiful designs, right? whenever we're designing, what we generally like when we're starting out, or like when we are designing, like even when I was starting out, what I used to love doing was like I was to try to fill the entire poster with some elements everywhere, right? But the more I tried to do that, the more what I realized, the more realization that I was coming was I was giving the audience more things to process, right? The more information we have to process, the more we have to look at the design. The best designs give out information in the least possible of time. Okay, so whenever we're designing flyers as well, if you remember the best ads in the world, like the most minimalistic ads sometimes are the most effective. If you think about an ad done by Apple or any other company, right? The least information, if you give your brain less to process, it gives it a higher chance of registering in your brain, right? In terms of putting the information all together as well, a lot of this information are clustered together, so we have a lot of things to look at. You have one circle, two circles, three circles. However, if you come to this design, we notice the clarity first, then we look and notice this, then we notice there's three circles over here, right? And look at the space that is given in terms of the design as well, because this is pretty much the same size. However, since it is giving so much white space, this looks a lot cleaner and it is a lot easier to process as well, right? So going back and discussing some of the few principles that we discussed today, the first one was, of course, balance. We have to try to achieve balance in our design so that it is friendlier on the eyes to look at. We can achieve balance through proximity and alignment. Then we talked about hierarchy, which can be achieved through contrast in terms of colors, in terms of sizes, and in terms of linear contrast as well. Then we talked a little bit about the rule of thirds. And finally, we came to white space, right? So, as I discussed earlier, what I would like to do now is see if you guys have any designs that we would want to discuss on. Right? So as I said, if you guys want to send in your flyers right now, we can do that as well. Otherwise, what I will do right now is, again, I will share my screen in a bit and talk about how to plan for a design. Okay. So let me share my screen again. So I just received a message that people are not being able to send files through the chat. As I'd like to request Toastmaster Karanveer, if is it possible to allow the participants to send messages, to send the images or their files over chat or not?
If I may interrupt, maybe you can provide your WhatsApp number, and they can provide you the designs
Yes.
on WhatsApp. That might be a
Sure.
better.
So my WhatsApp number, I'll just quickly put it on the chat over here as well, is going to be so you have to add the Nepal area code, the +977 98511 66746. So if you guys want to send it over on WhatsApp, I have WhatsApp desktop, so it shouldn't be a problem. So right now I am using a sketch tool because I want to be able to share my screen with you. What I usually do is I usually utilize a notebook to actually plan my design, a sketchbook or a rough piece of paper as well. So in this, this allows me to just scribble on whatever I need to do. And as I said, I'm not actually going to do a full design, but I'm going to show you guys how I actually go about planning a design, right? So again, once we discuss this and go through this, I would like to take a few minutes for everyone to actually try to plan out a flyer for their own clubs. And if you guys can open up your cameras and share that after this, we can work on that too. So again, a standard size I'm using is on a square, because again, if we're posting to Instagram, we can utilize that, right? So the first things that we need to think about is, what is the key message that needs to go over there, right? For me, for this purpose, let's say I want to really highlight the speakers, because we have really prominent speakers coming into our clubs. So what I would generally do is, okay, I'd say we have, say it's a special event and we have 2 featured speakers coming in. So I generally just do a sketch of 2 people. Okay, it's not working. Hold on. So again, as I said, this does not need to look perfect. This just needs to look, this is just, you will not be showing this to anyone. So you will be doing this for a frame of reference, right? So you have the 2 featured speakers that you want to highlight over here. So these need to be the biggest in your design, right? So after that, the second information that needs to come in is, these need to be, you need to tell who those people are going to be. So you need boxes that actually have the information of the speaker information, right? Then you think about it, since this is the primary information, what you need to think is, where do you want it placed? Where do you want it placed? Let me see here. It is, for some reason, it is not allowing me to move this around. Right? So you can look around to see if you want to place it to the left, if you want to place it to the right, if you wanted to place it in the center. So if I follow the rule of thirds, I would believe that I want it to be placed somewhere over here, right? Followed by this, what we can do is, what is the next thing that needs to come to highlight? Probably the theme, right? So you can have some information regarding the theme over here. What if you want to place an image, maybe you can do something along the lines of, place the image behind these characters and have the theme text over here as well, right? Then of course you'll have the Toastmasters logo over here, maybe the club information over here, followed by, if you want joining information, you can have the Zoom link. You can play, again, if you want to place it closer together, the date, Zoom link, all of these can go in a box over here. And this again still gives you a lot of space to work with. Maybe you want to have the Toastmaster of the day over here, right? Maybe there's a, the Toastmaster of the day is going here with his information, his or her information over here. And then you can have maybe the general evaluator for the day, right? So again, what this allows you to do is, if you draw a straight line through the middle again, this is balanced by the text you'll have over here with the club information. This will obviously balance this out. And again, this information will be balanced by the Zoom date information, right? In terms of hierarchy as well, you have established clear hierarchy with the object number 1, 2, You want, if you were doing 3, 4, and if you want the logos to be highlighted as well, 5, right? But again, in terms of white space as well, you are providing a lot of white space all around this over here, right? Proximity, you have key information grouped together. And if you utilize this, as I said, I did not spend 5 minutes on it because I have been used to this for a while now. I mean, I've been designing, but if you want to spend 5 minutes on it, then just do a rough sketch on your notebook or anything that you might have, right? And then start designing. Only after you do this. When you do this, you already have a guideline of what you want to follow. You want to place 2 images over here with an image on the background, maybe with the text of that theme highlighted over here. You want to have the Toastmaster of the day and the general evaluator as well. You're going to have information regarding the dates, the logos, all are included, right? So what I would like to do now is I would like you guys to spend 5 minutes. Even if you don't need that, that'd be fine as well. I just want you to take a piece of paper and a pen and just do a rough sketch of something similar. Maybe you in this event you will not have featured speakers like prominent speakers. Maybe the theme is the thing you want to highlight the most, right? So let's assume that you are highlighting a really nice theme, and the Toastmaster of the day that is coming up with the theme, and you'll have 2-3 speakers. And so while we do that, I will just download some of the designs that you guys have sent me over. So thank you guys all that have sent in your images. I received a lot of them actually. So much so that I might not actually have time to go through all of them. But
Toastmaster Anuj,
yes.
I just want to ask you something while I'm scribbling.
Mhm.
Is it that we have to have the TI logo always on the top? Can we have it also at the bottom?
There is no rule regarding placing it at the bottom, but again, in terms of preference, I think they always prefer it to be top on the top and on this either corners actually. So they do say that you can place it on the bottom corner as well. However, they discourage them against placing it in the middle. Like they do not like it centrally aligned. So you can place it at the bottom as well. That is not an issue. But again, in terms of the rule of thirds that I apply, I always place it at the top because we tend to notice images on the top much more. I mean, even if we look at how our Zoom is structured as well, according to the rule of thirds, the person that is speaking generally always gets placed at the top left, right? So Zoom is also really well designed in that sense that it places the person that is speaking on automatically goes to the top left. If you look at it in the gallery view, it is a really nice way to look at it because it is always divided into a grid, and the person that is speaking goes to the top left because that is where our eyes find it most comfortable and the first place that we look at.
Yes, because I was thinking in terms of our program promotion material. Let's say a meeting poster, right? Because we are all Toastmasters, and
Mhm.
I don't think for us it's necessary to, like, even the rule of the third. I don't think it's that important to highlight the TI logo, because we need to promote the program or TMOE or the speakers, right? Because I mean, just my thought. If it was for somebody else to see, I think TI.
Ideally, whenever I
highlight.
am designing, I am always thinking that I am designing to get as many guests as possible into the meeting. So
Yes.
the guests will always not be able to recognize that it is a Toastmasters event, right? Because as I said, if we are doing it only for us, we do not even need a flyer because we have our WhatsApp groups, we'll just send in the information. But when we're designing flyers, we have to take the assumption that people do not know about Toastmasters, because whenever we're designing flyers, we're posting it on social media, we're sending it to other clubs as well, and our primary objective is to get guests into the meeting, right? So would anybody like to share any of their scribbles? If you can raise your hand and enable your videos, then I can we can spotlight you so that everybody else can see as well. All right, we have Sanchita. Could you please enable your video and show us your scribble?
Yeah, can you see it?
Um, yeah, I can see it. Hold on, let me just zoom in on that. So yes, that is actually really well done. I mean, you placed it TMOD picture over there with the name, the club logos, the theme, club president membership, all of the key information that you need is mentioned over there as well, right? So now whenever you design, you actually have an idea of what you want to do right away. So you'll know what to look for as well, right? Would anybody else volunteer to share? All right, Toastmaster Isha. I think you'll need to disable your virtual background for this.
Uh, Not the upper one, not this one.
Mm-hmm.
This
The one
one.
in the bottom, right? Yeah. So
Yeah.
you have chosen to highlight the speakers, right?
Kiva.
I think you need to move it. Yeah, there we go. So you have the theme highlighted, then you have this, the speakers are the, in terms of hierarchy, the first thing that people will notice is the speakers. Then we move towards the joining information, the Toastmaster of the evening, and then the logos, right? So anybody else? We have, yes, Toastmaster Shri. You can enable your video. Or is it a question
I'm
that you
sorry.
had?
Actually, I'm not able to turn on my video. I guess it's some technical screen.
All right, no worries at all. No worries at all.
Thank
Toastmaster
you.
Bharat.
Am I visible?
Yes, you are.
So my drawing is really pathetic, but I have tried my best. Here the Toastmaster logo, club name. We will be having a MOT on 3rd of September. So I can place the Toastmaster who will be doing the MOT, his theme, the date and time. We can place the SK by SKTC PR team. Like
There we go. That's actually perfect. So do we have anybody else? Otherwise, we can move on. So what this activity really I wanted to highlight was actually we have Toastmaster Akriti. Yes, if you want to share your screen as well.
Yes, just give me a moment. I will just. So, okay, this is not mirroring it. That might be a problem. I don't know how do I. Can you see?
Yes, we can see it.
But it's not mirror image, right?
No, it's okay. It's mirrored image.
Okay. So here's the logo.
Mm-hmm.
I've kept the club name in the middle, and this is the meeting number,
Okay.
and this is the Toastmaster of the day. This is the theme. This is the meeting details, and these are the contact details of the social media pages and other details of the VP membership and everybody.
Exactly. That's fantastic.
Thank you.
We have Toastmaster Pawan with his hand raised as well.
A second. So I think you can see here. So here it is. The logo of Toastmaster is in this corner, and in the upper third there's the section of role players, and the lower section, the lower third there is this section of speakers. So I want to highlight the theme and theme in this upper third. I want to highlight theme, role players, and the speakers.
Exactly. That's great. Yes. So, so when we do this activity, as I said, it gives us a clear direction that we can follow to achieve what we are looking for in design as well. It's always easier to just scribble down whatever we require, whatever we want to make, and then go about. Once we have that vision of what we want to create, we can go about finding elements that fit in. Then, of course, we can utilize a lot of different elements that that you can utilize. Then we can go about finding images that are suitable for your purpose. Then we can find out what kind of colors that we want to use. If you want a lighter background or a darker background, if you want to have what kind of how big you want the text to be. Those are just minute details that you can utilize from later as well, after you figure out what goes on to the design, right? So now let me actually share my screen really quickly, and I will be doing this on Photoshop. All right, I hope my screen is visible. Okay. So I received a lot of like designs that you guys wanted me to look over. I'll just go through a few that I can. So this is the first one that I received, right? So if you the things that are done well in this design is I'm not sure who sent this in, but I'll just talk about it. The key thing that I would suggest is, if you look at this area, I think this is what you need to, we're seeking to highlight the most. However, when you have a lot of elements on the background, it is not necessarily contrasting really well, right? So what I would suggest you to do is, if you want something to be highlighted, what you can create is you can place a box above it, and if you still want that design to be highlighted, you can just utilize play with the transparency. You can do this in Canva as well, of course. You can utilize the transparency and then place the text above this. Okay, I'm going to type this again. All right. So as soon as you see, you can notice the difference right away, right? As soon as you have this blue background behind it, you can see that the contrast appears a lot better. Right? So the text becomes, the colors contrast better when there is less disturbance behind it, right? Again, ideally what I would do again is, if I was following the Brad rules, I would place this information over here. I would align these two to the left, right? And then I would have this information. So I'm doing this in a very rough sense right now. So I hope you guys don't mind the rough finish to this. I'd place this information again closer to over here, and I'd make sure that I have everything aligned over here, right? So what this would do is it would process everything together. So collaborate for success, improve, so people would read it together as well. If without this, how people will read it is, improve your skills in public relations, join our club, collaborate for success. If you place it together, collaborate for success, improve your skills in public relations, join our club. So the final thing that they read is join your club. That is the action that you want them to take out of everything, right? So again, this is just a rough estimation of what I would do with this design itself. And let me look at another one. Right, so I have one over here. So the things that do really well in this design is, the first thing I can tell is it is aligned better than in certain sense, right? However, if I was following the rule of thirds and I would place some guidelines over here, right, you can tell that the rule of thirds is not particularly followed over here. However, there is a lot of information that needs to be processed. So again, it might be a little tricky doing that as well. So what I would do over here is, of course, the other thing I would mention right away about this is we are not allowed to use illustrations in our design. However, for the purpose of showing it right now, I will continue with the design itself. Right. So I would try to create more space by changing around the objects, right? So of course, the other thing that you guys can do with this is you can also alter the size. If you are feeling a little cramped for space, you can always make your designs bigger, right? So the easiest thing for us to do with some designs would be,
Yeah, to Toastmaster Anu, can I interrupt?
yes, please.
Anu's,
Yes, please go ahead.
sorry.
Yes, Toastmaster Paul.
Actually, we are using poise to 3 aspect ratio, and this is the PPT template.
Okay.
The Toastmaster of the morning are supposed to make it. So on that regard, can you explain how can we develop a good fly in poise to 3 aspect ratio?
And 4:3 ratio.
Yeah, on that aspect ratio.
Okay, so in that aspect ratio as well, what you can then do is you can think about, do all of these people need to be over there or not? Because According to the rule, the first person that is getting highlighted is the Toastmaster of the morning, right? The other thing you can do is maybe change the sizes around. Right? If you make certain information smaller, you can place certain information closer to each other. Right? In terms of in terms of proximity as well. In terms of proximity as well, you can always utilize things. Wait. Okay, I made a mistake over here. I don't know how this got over here. Okay, regardless. So you can always make certain elements closer together in terms of proximity as well. And then you can take the entire thing, make it smaller. So what happens when you do this is, even though it is becoming smaller, since it's closer together to each other, it is getting processed together, right? And of course, since this is close over here as well, you do not need all of this space over here as well. So of course, this is going to be very rough as well. Again, the meeting link over here as well can be placed closer, maybe to the theme of itself, because as we said, we are processing relative information together, right? So what this will allow you to do is, this will allow you now to play with the sizes for this. So if you want to highlight the speakers more, you can utilize this more, right? Maybe the other role players can be slightly smaller. Right. So now you see if you can utilize this as well. You can make, even if you make this bigger, it is still achieving that balance as well, right? Now in terms of rule of thirds as well, you will see the theme is getting highlighted, as well as the speakers. All of this are on certain points everywhere, right? In terms of hierarchy as well, in terms of these are bigger. Again, you can also, if you want to take it a step further, you can always do this as well, right? Again, it all depends on what information you want highlighted the most. Okay. So I think we have time to look at one more design. I don't know which one this is.
Toastmaster Anuj,
Yes.
I must say that in this design, whatever you do, please remove that illustration.
All right. Yes. So again, this illustration, for the purpose I used it, but please, as much as possible, avoid using those illustrations. So this would be how I would do it. We have a hand raised by Toastmaster Akriti Mathur as well. If you have a question, please go ahead.
Yes, I have a question. If we remove the illustration, then
Mhm.
how do we depict the theme?
With the
Because
text.
in community clubs, you know, the
Mhm.
guests are more attractive with the theme. What theme is there? And we
Okay.
have seen that, like whenever. So we've stopped doing the illustrations and the images as of
Mhm.
now,
Mhm.
but keeping a check with our guests, so they're
Mhm.
more attractive towards what is there in the flyer, and you know what theme is it being depicted. So how do we do the transition from that?
So again, what I talked about, the purpose and the design. Unfortunately, the purpose of Toastmasters flyers are not to depict the theme. This is something that has been clearly stated by Toastmasters, because Toastmasters want a certain purpose on there. They want to highlight more about professionalism, more about the ambience of Toastmasters rather than the theme as well. Because think about it, when we are joining a Toastmasters club, right? That again, the end goal for us with the flyers is to get the guests to become members, not just join the meeting. The end goal is to become members. But if we are focusing on each and every theme and designing flyers that are like custom to the theme changes every week. Every week the theme changes, but what stays constant is the ambience of Toastmasters, the professionalism of Toastmasters, how the Toastmasters, the feeling that you get when you attend the Toastmasters, that is what stays constant, and that is the purpose of the flyers as well. And for, like as I said, it's a bit of a double-edged sword in a sense, right? I do think that distinguished Toastmaster Moon will also be able to explain this a little better as well. But again, the core purpose of the theme, the flyers that we create, is not to highlight the theme rather than the ambience of the meeting itself. So we are focusing on the long run rather than individual themes. Am I right, distinguished Toastmaster Moon?
Yes, I couldn't have explained this better. And I'm so happy that a designer is actually so well versed on actually what we are trying to do with a flyer, because usually as designers we want to showcase our designs, we want to really highlight our creativity and things like that, but we have to go back to the purpose. Why are we doing this? And again, to the purpose, back to what Toastmasters said, why do we join Toastmasters? It's not for the theme, and it's not for one meeting. We are trying to ask, whenever we are trying to get more members, we're trying to help those members in fulfilling their goal to learn some skills. And at Toastmasters, we are giving them life skills by concentrating mostly on leadership and, even more importantly, public speaking skills. So if we continue to highlight food, or we continue to highlight other things, then that somehow gets sidetracked. And what happens is members join and they get disappointed, because that's not the reason they would have joined. So whenever we ask members, whenever we get members to attracted to join any meeting and eventually join the club, we have to focus that when they come to Toastmasters, they're actually honing their skills on public speaking and leadership. And that's what we should also concentrate when we design our flyers. Now, very rightly said, Toastmaster Anuj.
All right, so I am going to look at one more design. Again, I don't know which one it is. I got sent a lot of them, so I'll just pick one out of random, if that's okay with you guys. Okay, so again, the first thing I would have to say about this design is this: we cannot utilize this image, right? In terms of the club being highlighted, of course, we can always utilize that as well. We can always place that slightly to the side, because again, the Toastmaster, if you look at the logo guidelines, there needs to be a certain space around the logo itself that you need to be very careful about. In terms of proximity, what I would also do is, since I want, if I'm sure that you are targeting to get all of this information processed by our brains together. So I would place this over here like this, right? And it is not going to be possible right now, but I would, of course, I'll do this like this for now. But I would go ahead and change this into the maroon color that we have, right? So since I cannot edit the text right now, I'm just going to utilize the tools on that Photoshop provides me to do that. You guys don't necessarily need to do that. Again, this is creating, in terms of when we do this, what we are doing is we're making sure that the brain processes that club name, the club district, all of this information together. But we are also highlighting that these are two different elements. So again, we're using color as separation to create that contrast between the two information, right? And then, of course, you want to highlight the theme. So if you want to, you can, ideally what I would say is, maybe what you can do is take these into 2 lines, right? Or even if you want to create a bigger image as well, still bigger, you can take these into 3 lines as well. Right? Again, create that hierarchy with a change of color. Right? Change the size up, because you do not really need people to know like this is a theme, because it's pretty evident, right? So again, you're establishing a hierarchy within this is itself as well, right? Then if you want to highlight the TMOE, you can of course go ahead and just place them over here as well. Right? Now the tricky part over here is, since this is key information that can be processed together, this is information about the Toastmaster of the evening, itself, right? So what I would ideally suggest you to do is make this slightly smaller and have this information go somewhere closer to the name of the Toastmaster of the evening, right? Now we have this information that is the remaining over here. Again, if you want, you can have it closer to, if you want to really highlight it, you can place it closer to the theme itself, because then it will be processed together. Now you have a lot of space to work with. You can add in your speakers as well. You can add in more information if you want to. Otherwise, if you want to process it like that, maybe you can just change up the size and go ahead and do this as well. Right? So it's not necessarily that you need to do things differently. Just placing things around, utilizing a lot of placements, it really helps out, right? So if you want to have the speakers, what you could also do is, maybe for now, I'm just going to assume that this is the speaker itself, right? So say you have 2 speakers. You can place them over here as well. Maybe if you want to create that separation as well, put a box behind it, behind that information. For now, I will not be able to remove the background on this. I mean, if you're using Photoshop, you will have tools that you can utilize, certain like this. And I'll just allow you to remove the backgrounds and do different kinds of stuff as well. If you're using Canva, then again, you can work without it as well. So if you want to, again, as I said, if you want this information processed together, you can utilize different aspects like this. Right. So again, this block signifies that this is separate information. You will have your regular club meeting information here, or you can have it here. I mean, you are free to do whatever you want with your designs as well. Right. So that brings us to the end of the official sessions, but we can take some questions. I do believe we have a little bit of time. If you have any questions, please raise your hand and we can address that right now. Do you have any questions? All right, so I guess if we do not have any questions, we will all start making a lot of better designs, or fantastic designs, and we will all serve towards the purpose of making flyers out of Toastmasters, and we'll all encourage a lot of members to join in as well. So thank you guys so much for listening in to me. I mean, if you guys have any feedback, we will be floating the feedback form after the meeting. Please, as we are all here to improve, I would also like to know where I can improve as well. So any suggestions are welcome as well. With that said, I think I will hand the floor back over to distinguished Toastmaster Moon to see if she has anything to add.
Thank you, Toastmaster Anuj. I think this was a very fulfilling session regarding the design 101, graphic design 101. I hope that all the participants here today, there was almost 50 of them at one point, have learned something, and will be able to see great designs from District 41. And next year there will be no dearth of designers in the district pool, district sheet also. As for some questions that were asked in between, like using black, we have covered that in our earlier session regarding brand guidelines. Black is not one of the colors, TI colors, as Toastmaster Anuj earlier also showed the colors. Black can be used in text, but not in background. If you have similar questions regarding brand guidelines, please go to our YouTube and you will see our video from the training that was conducted by Toastmaster Anuj and our assistant PRM, Distinguished Toastmaster Meda, and you will be able to see the entire video. We will most probably be posting this video also later on once we've actually checked it and gone through it. We do have 2 other sessions lined up already. We have the session for video, because I have seen a lot of questions regarding video coming in our Facebook chat. We have that tomorrow. And then we have a session on the use of Canva by Toastmaster Sahil in September. So we will be sharing the information regarding all this. The links will also be there in the Excel sheet. Please do ask your area directors and division directors to share that with you. In case you've lost the link somehow, or you don't see all our posters that we bombard you with, you can still ask them and get the access to the links to join. Thank you, Toastmaster Anuj, for a wonderful job. We are here to answer your questions. Toastmaster Anuj is here to answer your questions in the future too. Please do not bombard him with a lot of questions in his WhatsApp. I know he's shared his personal WhatsApp there. Try to share your questions in the PR group, or in the if you are a district or division or area PRM, then please share it in our WhatsApp group itself instead of sharing questions directly to him, and we'll collectively answer your questions. All the best and happy designing, and happy weekend to all of you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Toastmaster Anuj. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Yes, as Toastmaster Karanveer has said, we will be posting our videos of the trainings in the district website under the PR corner and trainings. Since most of you have already left, and those who have left most probably have gone away from the computer or your devices, I'm going to close the meeting and the meeting. Thank you all.